What if, when we were going through struggles, what if we would look for someone else that's going through a struggle, and instead of just focusing on us, what if we looked for them to help them? If we can do this, 3 things will happen. Last week was part 1. If you missed it because of the snow, we got CDs in the back, and basically the first thing we learned was the first thing he said. And that is, he said, "Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing." And the first thing that we can learn from that is that when we're going through a tough season in our life is to forgive everybody who's trying to ruin your life. Because we don't want to allow the hurt and the bitterness to live rent-free inside of us, because that will mess us up. Don't have time to redo that. Go back and check out the CD from last week. But if you've seen a movie or a picture, you notice there's not 1 cross, but there's 3. Because Jesus had a thief on each side of him, other criminals that were being crucified for what they had done, but Jesus was innocent. In Luke chapter 23, verse 39, here's the story. Luke 23, one of the criminals who hung there was insulting Jesus. He says, "Hey, aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him and said, "Don't you fear God, since you're under the same sentence?" He says, "We're being punished justly. We're getting what we deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong." And then he kind of reaches out. He cries out. He asks Jesus for help. Look at the next verse. "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Now listen, if I'm on the cross, I'm hurting. I'm thinking, don't talk to me, man. I'm in pain, right? But look what Jesus says. He reaches out to this criminal right next to him. The Bible says God rewards our faith. Look at what Jesus said. Jesus answered him and said, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." We're going to look at the second key, the second principle of how we can get through the tough days of our life, and that is this. Number 2, help others even when you're hurting. Help others that are going through the same struggles that you are in your life. This is one of my favorites, one of the most powerful principles. Hey, let me ask you a question, though, before we get into it. How many here get really selfish when you're sick? I do. My hand's up, right? I feel like I've got some things down. I feel like I do well. But, man, when I get sick, I can be really, really selfish. I'm upstairs by myself, and Jen, come up. What do you need? I need water. Okay, go down and get. Okay, no, now I need soda. Hey, now I need Gatorade. We don't have Gatorade. Well, go get some. It's like I turn into like a bad person sometimes. I need some peanut butter. Okay, I can't decide. I'm trying to get all these things, and then sometimes I just want somebody to stand up there and go, "Man, I really feel bad for you." It's like, come on, let's talk about me. Come on, no, be honest. You're like, come on, somebody love me. Somebody have compassion on me. Bring me some chicken soup, right? And see, it's hard when we're hurting to not just let our own hurt consume us. But here's something that's very powerful. What if, when we were going through struggles, what if we would look for someone else that's going through a struggle, and instead of just focusing on us, what if we looked for them to help them? If we can do this, 3 things will happen in our life. Number 1, when you help others, even when you're hurting, number 1, it'll distract you from your own need. It distracts us from our own pain and need. There was a study done at Columbia University with a lot of people, and this was the conclusion of the study. They said, when we help others navigate stressful situations, it helps us navigate the stressful situations in our life. They said, when you help someone that's going through a crisis, someone that's going through a stressful situation, and you help them navigate their emotions, it actually increases your emotional well-being. They said at the same time, it's very common that there are heightened levels of self-focus in depression. They said heightened levels of self-focus are common in people that are struggling with depression. I want to tell you today that there's something very powerful when we help others, even though we're hurting, when you encourage someone, when you pray for someone, when you're there for someone else. There's an old Chinese proverb that says this: hey, you want to be happy for an hour? take a nap. Come on, somebody. How many just love a good nap every now and then? Amen. Sometimes you just need it. I've taken naps in meetings before, Come back after lunch. I'm like, man, I had too much cream sauce or something. I'm tired. I can just bow my head. Since I'm a pastor, people think I'm praying. It's okay. They'll be like, he's over there just before the Lord. Let him seek God. He's going to have great wisdom. Pastor, what do you? Oh, yes. No, I love what you said. It's like sometimes a good nap, that'll make you happy. Here's what the Chinese said. You want to be happy for an hour, take a nap. You want to be happy for a day? Go fishing. Want to be happy for a year? Inherit a fortune. You want to be happy for a lifetime? Help somebody. Jesus, one of the famous phrases he said, this quote in the book of Acts, he says, it's actually more blessed when you're on the giving end of life. He said it's more blessed to give than to receive. That word blessed means to be happy, to be fortunate, right? To be favored. Jesus said you're going to be more blessed in your life, more full, more joyful, more happy when you're on the giving end of life. Hey, I go through stuff just like you guys because I stand up here and speak. I'm not immune from life and struggles and emotional pain and attacks. But what I found is when I said yes when I was a young adult to helping other people, I might be having a really difficult week sometime. But somewhere around midweek or so, I've got to shift my focus off me, no matter what I'm going through. And it's a blessing. I got to start thinking about you. I start praying about you. Lord, what's the word in due season for this week? What do people need to hear? How can I help people this week? How can I encourage people this week? You know what I've learned? It's one of the most powerful things in life is to get your mind off of your own problems and to start helping someone else. When I was helping young people, when I was a young adult, 18, 19, 20 years old, I realized that saying yes to ministry put me in a place where I was thinking about how to help people a lot more. And I want to tell you this, if you're a teenager here today, a lot of times with young people, we talk about all the things we shouldn't do. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But what I found is that when we spend more time doing good things, we'll have very little time to do bad things. And so when you spend your focus and your time helping other people, it's one of the most powerful things you can do. Martin Luther King, one of his quotes is this. He said, one of the most urgent questions in life is, what are you doing to help someone else? Here's the second thing it'll do. When you help others, it'll help you see solutions for your own life. It'll help you see solutions. You ever had somebody come to you and they're kind of sharing their problem with you and you are just counseling them and giving them advice, and you're like, well, listen, and, it sounds like what you need to do is, number one, do this, number two. And maybe sometimes you're like, man, I'm a genius when I'm counseling. It's like, man, I really know how to help them get through this. And then you go through that same type of situation, and what do? I don't know what to do, man. I'm stuck. Why? Because our pain blinds us. Now, I've sat with people, I don't do marriage counseling really, but, I've sat with people that will share with me what's going on in their marriage, and for me, it's easy to see, well, listen, if you would just do this and if you would just do this, it'll all work out great. But they can't see it because their pain is blinding them. And see, what you'll find is if you get on the giving end, you get on the encouraging end, you get on the end to help other people, some of those solutions you go, man, I can do this in my own life. It increases your capacity to grow when you help other people. It increases your capacity to receive from God. I love talking to our small group leaders because we're really pushing for this culture of small groups in our church. And one of the things that the leaders will say to me is, man, I learn more than they learn. Some of these guys will teach different curriculums and they've taught it, a dozen different times. And they'll say, every time I lead a group of people, the people will say, man, I'm learning so much. And listen, if you're ready for next level of discipleship, get involved in a small group. We launch again in just a few weeks in June. But see, the leaders themselves will come to me and they'll say, man, I'm learning more. I feel like I'm getting more out of it than them. Why? Because something powerful happens when you step in to the giving flow. That's why one of the things we say is the best way to grow is to lead. The best way to grow is to lead. They actually tell us now that if you're wanting to learn a new topic, that the way that you'll retain the information best is if you learn it and then go teach it to someone else. Learn it and then go teach it to someone else. You'll hold on to more of it, that and writing everything down. But learn it and say it. Jesus said it like this in Luke chapter 6. He said, give and it'll be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. I'm trying to help you today, give you principles that are powerful to help you get through the toughest days of your life. Here's the third thing that will happen when you do that. Number 3, it will help you receive more from God. It will help you receive more from God. When you're helping others that are going through the same struggles you are, when you're helping other people even though you're hurting, it will help you receive more of God's goodness and God's grace in your life. Isaiah chapter 58. And if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry. See, they were fasting. They wanted to seek God. In Isaiah 58, the first few verses, they were like, God, we're fasting. Do you see it? He said, that's not the kind of fast I want from you right now. And he says, here's what I want. I want you to spend yourself on behalf of the hungry. I want you to satisfy the needs of the oppressed. Then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land. He will strengthen your frame. Notice here, you pour into people. You're spending yourself on behalf, you're satisfying the needs of others, and then what does God say? Your light will rise, your night will become like noonday. God will guide you, He will satisfy your needs, and He will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never. God says, listen, if you'll pour into others, I'll pour into you. If you'll pour into others, I'll pour into you. I need a volunteer. I'm gonna have Vicky, our connections director, come up. Everybody give a big hand to Vicky. Yeah, everybody loves Vicky. All right, listen, we're gonna do this here. I'm gonna ask Vicky to play the part of God, okay? How many think she can do it, right? Vicky's gonna be God. Now listen, this is me. And this is a little bit of time. This is my resources, my energy, my gifts. And see, there's people in my life, these glasses represent people, and there's needs all around us all the time. There's people going through the same struggles that you are, the same struggles that I am. And see, but I'm here and I've got a little bit of water in my pitcher, and I could just say, man, I'm hurting. I need all this right now. I just don't touch me. I need this. I'm hurting. But see, God says, if you spend yourself on behalf of the hungry, man, there's this person and they really need some help right now. They need somebody just to show that they're not alone. I think I'm gonna take this person out to lunch. I'm gonna pour into them. I'm gonna encourage them. I'm gonna mentor them. And then maybe you see that there's someone that's really going through a problem. You're thinking, I'm gonna pray for this person. I'm gonna pour prayer into this. And then you see a need at church and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna get on that dream team and I'm gonna help some people. I'm gonna get out those front doors and let people know when they come in here, man, they've come to the right place. There's all kinds of love here. And then maybe God puts on your heart, hey, you know what? Help one of those teens go to summer camp. And you're like, okay, God, I'm gonna satisfy the needs of the young people today. They need the Word of God. They need Jesus in their life. And then you've just got all these opportunities and needs. And you're like, I'm just gonna pour into people. You think, well, man, you're gonna run out. Your cup's getting low. Well, this is where God comes in. What did God promise to do? He says, you'll be like a well-watered garden. Okay, God. Amen. Everybody give God a good hand over here. Thank you, Vicky. Yes. And now God says, I'm going to fill you up. I'm going to refresh you. Scripture says, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. This principle is one of the most powerful things that I've ever encountered in all of my life. In fact, I'll tell you a secret. You want to know a secret? Our church is organized around this principle. Our whole church is organized because it is the very best way for me to pastor you. Here's what I mean. The best way for us to help you is to help you help others. And when you help others, you get helped. I'll say that one more time. The best way for us to help you is to help you to help others, because when you help others, you get helped. And it's called the cycle of giving. It's called being a blessing. We're called to be blessed. We're called to be a blessing. Peter said, you're called to receive a blessing, so give a blessing. Now, this happens in 2 or 3 different ways. How do we do that? How do we find how we can be a blessing? Well, number one is through your passions and through your gifts. Through your passions and through your gifts. God's put inside of each and every person here today. If you're following Christ here today, God has put inside of you a gift, a spiritual gift, an ability that when you do it, you're in your element. It's like, man, a bird has wings. He's made to fly. And there's a gift inside of all of us. It could be hospitality. It could be something you're good with your hands. It could be in crafts. There's a gift inside of every one of us that when you do it, it makes a difference in other people's lives. Why? Because God has built this thing to work like that. He's built it where we're all walking with each other and we're all serving and helping each other. When you do it, you make a difference in other people's lives. The sad part about it is the church, Big C Church, across America, 87% of people say, I don't know what my spiritual gift is. That's why we say, hey, listen, come to Connect. Let us help you drill down and find what God has put on the inside of you so we can plug you in to that giving cycle so you can learn you can use what God's put in you to pour into other people. Because when you help other people, you get help. When you find this, it's gold. It's kind of like you find the fountain of youth. You're like, wait a minute, this is powerful. I've come off of hard weeks before and decided I'm putting all that aside. I'm going to pour into people. I'm going to pour into people this week. And many of you, I know you do the same thing. Some of you out there, you're welcoming people and shaking hands. Some of you are holding kids. We've got some kids workers that their gift is so strong with kids that they'll come even when they're not scheduled and say, man, I just need to get here and hold some babies. I want to pour into some preschoolers. I want to help somebody. And see, God will use your passions and your gifts, but here's something else he'll use, and this sometimes throws people off. God will use your mess ups. He'll use your mistakes. He'll use your hurts. He'll use your pains. In fact, God and only God has this amazing ability to redeem your pain and turn it into purpose. And so some of you today, you're like, well, let me read you my resume, Pastor. I'm not qualified to help anybody. And you disqualify yourself because you've been through a divorce, you've been addicted to something, or you've had this problem in your life. Listen, we believe that God loves to redeem our pain and turn into purpose. And if you'll look for others that are going through that same struggle, listen, who better to help someone going through a divorce than someone who has been through that and survived and still held on to their faith and is still full of God? Who better to help someone with a special needs child than someone who's got a special needs child? Who better to help somebody who's coming out of prison than somebody who's already come out of prison? And see, it's right here. 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul outlines it so well. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, this is what God says. All praise to God the Father, Jesus the Messiah, the God of all healing counsel. Now check it out. This is how this works. God, he comes alongside us when we go through hard times. Aren't you glad? And before you know it, he brings us alongside someone else who's going through hard times so that we can be there for that person just as God was there for us. He's not done. Look at verse 5. We have plenty of hard times that come just from following the Messiah, but no more so than the good times of his healing comfort. We get a full measure of that too. When we suffer for Jesus, it works out for your healing and salvation. And if we're treated well and given a helping hand, an encouraging word, that also works to your benefit. Spurring you on, face forward, unflinching. Your hard times are also our hard times. See what he's saying? Hey, listen, if things are going hard for us, we turn that around and we help you with it. If things are going great for us, we flip the blessing and we bless you with that. So whatever we're going through, we turn it around and we help someone else. But here's how he wraps it up in the last verse. He says, when we see that you're just as willing to endure the hard times as to enjoy the good times, we know you're going to make it. Somebody say that with me. We know you're going to make it. Turn to your neighbor right now, encourage him, say, listen, I know you're going to make it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So God calls us to come alongside people and help them. I heard a really wild story this week about a church in India. And when you think about India, you think about, man, how poor India is. But this is a church in Mizoram, India. This is like the poorest of the poor, right? In India. And the people there live on an average of about $1 a day. But in this church last year, they gave $13 million to missions. Wow. In the last century, they've sent out 1,800 missionaries from this church in Mizoram. How did it happen? Can trace it back to a giving ritual that they began in about 1910 that's called Boo Fi Fam, okay? Not Fee Fi Fo Fum, Boo Fi Fam, all right? Come on, it's 11:15, we can do it. Say it with me, Boo Fi Fam. And here's what it is. See, their diet consists of mainly rice, and so it's this simple. If they would eat a cup of rice, then they would give a cup of rice to the church. And they call it Boo Fi Fam. And the principle is very simple, and they believe this. As poor as they are, they believe that if you have something to eat, you have something to give. If you have something to eat, you have something to give. And last year they gave $13 million to missions. It's amazing. It's amazing. Can I tell you something that's the truth? Something very powerful happens when you sow a seed in someone's life, even at your point of need. Something powerful happens when you worship when you don't feel like it. When you're having a difficult day, a difficult week, and you come in and you're like, God, I'm praising you. I know, I'm hurting. But you know what? You're still worthy. I'm going to worship you. Something powerful happens when you sow a seed at a point of need, when you love someone when they don't deserve it or when they least expect it. When you give, even when you have a need in your own life. We hear stories of people that are struggling with depression. And when they use the little bit of good emotion they have to help someone else that's going through depression, you guessed it, they get better. God refreshes them. And I just want to tell you, church, that this powerful principle today, this will change your life if you'll embrace it and decide to live life not just looking to get your pitcher filled, but to say, God, who can I help? Who can I bless? Who can I encourage? What can I make happen for someone else? I promise you, you change your paradigm and you'll experience that watered garden in your life. Okay, let's get real practical as we wrap it up today. How did Jesus help this guy that was on the cross? How did he help him? We're going to take the one line Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. We're going to break it into 3 parts. And we're going to give you 3 things you can do for fellow strugglers, all right? Number 1, offer them stability. How can I help a fellow struggler? Offer them stability. Here's how Jesus did it in Luke 23. I like the New King James Version. He said, assuredly, I say to you. I like that word, assuredly, because it's strong. Right? In the NIV, it says truly. I like assuredly, like, hey, listen, this is solid. And you know why we need to offer one another stability with encouraging words? Because life is crazy. You know that. Some of you today on the inside, you sense the turmoil of the uncertainty of your life in some area. Some of you today, you might be in here and you might have such uncertainty in your life. You know what we need to do for one another? We need to remind one another, yes, you know what? There's tornadoes sometimes in life, but listen, there's one thing that never changes, right? And that's this: on Christ, the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. I'm going to build my life. I'm going to put my faith in the one who never changes. The psalmist said it like this in Psalms 40 and verse 2. He says, he lifted me out of a slimy pit. Anybody ever been in a slimy pit, right? And out of the mud and mire, he set my feet on a rock. He gave me a firm place to stand. We need to offer one another stability. We can say, you know, he didn't take him off the cross. We say, hey, listen, man, I can't change your circumstances, but listen, I can lead you to a person who's solid. Man, I can take you to a church where people are building their life on a strong foundation. I can give you a word from the Bible that Jesus said is rock solid. He said, assuredly, I say to you, offer people stability. Here's the second thing we can do: offer them support. Be there for them. Jesus said this, today, look at this phrase, you will be with me. He didn't say you're going there. He didn't say, okay, here's what. He said, today, you'll be with me, with me, with me. God's designed us to do life together. God's designed us to go through struggles together. Listen, if you're a Lone Ranger and going through a struggle, please don't be silent. You need to find someone and say, man, help me. I'm going through a struggle. This is not a church that's just here like during your good times. We're there. Every person is important. We're all going through. Come alongside someone. You need someone in your life because you're going to be attacked in life. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 12 tells us this: a person standing alone, they can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. It's so good when you have someone that's got your back. Three, that's a small group. Three are even better. For a triple braided cord is not easily broken. We are offering small groups now. We plan to offer a summer semester because one of the things we hear when we do small groups, I was talking to Christina, who's playing keyboard here. She leads a small group on Wednesday night, and her group was only 6 weeks long. And she told me last night, backstage, she says, you know what, my group, they don't want to end in 6 weeks. Because once they get in that rhythm of like, man, I've got a group of people I can go to and hang out with and say, man, this is the kind of week I had, and we're talking together, we're connecting. Listen, all the curriculums that we do, there's discipleship. You'll go deeper in your faith, but you know what? You're going to meet a friend. You're going to find someone, and you can offer each other support. And so what we're going to do this year that we haven't done, we're going to offer a summer semester because we're only offering small groups for about half the year. But listen, our team, our staff, we're committed. We want our church to be a culture of small groups because there is so much life. Listen, offer people stability and offer them support. Be there for somebody. Get in a group. Take somebody to lunch. Encourage somebody. Offer them support. And then lastly, offer them salvation. He didn't say we're getting down off this cross. He didn't say, hey, man, it's going to be okay. You're not going to. No, he said, today you'll be with me in paradise.
Hey, what a wonderful series this is. I hope you enjoyed it. We would love for you to come and visit us here at the church. We offer 3 services, so there's no reason that you can't make one of those. We want you to come. It's a relaxed environment, and we hope to see you here.